entertained? Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here?
Greetings to everyone watching live and everyone watching after the fact. Shout out to the faithful and salute to the patrons. This is Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief, here to bring you all a new anime review. Anime that's up for debate because it's some, an American. We'll get into all of that. How's everyone doing tonight? Thanks everyone for joining me live. So I am going to be giving you all pretty much my review of the 2020 original animated series from Netflix entitled Blood of Zeus. So this series has been out for about a month now. It's been a few weeks. It's been out. Hopefully some of you all tuning in will have had the chance to check it out. I will be doing minor spoilers in this review, but I'll try to keep it as spoiler-free as I can. I might even go ahead and open up a spoiler portion towards the end of the review, like I typically do with things, series like this. Also, if you guys have any questions or comments that you want to make sure get answered before the end of tonight's broadcast, you can always drop a super chat, and I'll make sure to get to those before I conclude tonight's show. So without further ado, you guys know how it is. I got the description in the description box below. Please feel free, give it a click and read on. All right, so let's get this party started. Ooh, I was missing my own link. All right, here we go. So this is my review of the 2020 Netflix original animated series, Blood of Zeus, created by Charlie and Vlas Palapinides, and produced by Powerhouse Animation Studios. And a brief synopsis of Blood of Zeus. A commoner living in ancient Greece, Heron discovers his true heritage as a son of Zeus and his purpose to save the world from a demonic army. Now, yes, very, very brief synopsis, giving absolutely nothing away with that synopsis. But that was the one that was on IMDb. So that's one I used because I felt it was the most concise and kind of got the most straight to the point. But I'm going to go into more details about what all the series entails and whatnot. And as always, once again, we're going to be breaking this thing down, talking about story, writing, dialogue, characters, so on and so forth. So more details on the synopsis of Blood of Zeus and pretty much like what this whole story is. So first off, and I want to go ahead and I want to give the creators some credit for this. This is actually an original story. It's an original story. It's not a remake of anything. It's not an adaptation of any one particular Greek myth. It's actually sort of like a little amalgam of different things throughout Greek mythology that they kind of combine to create their own story. So for those of you all who are familiar with Greek mythology or with, Greek material, some of the stuff in the series you could kind of see coming. You can kind of suspect just because we kind of know how these stories go. But the way in which they manage it was a nice little reprieve. It was a nice little surprise. But essentially, the main crux of this story is that there is essentially a war brewing on Earth in ancient Greece between a race of demons and pretty much mankind. And that is pretty much cut and dry as it is. Demons are trying to establish their supremacy on the earth, and they are trying to, turn. They are trying to turn as many humans into demons as possible, and those who will not capitulate, gone, right? That's pretty much what that is. This war ends up spilling over into our main character, Heron's village, and that's how he gets swept up into the whole thing because his town gets attacked, people get killed. One of those characters near and dear to him. And while this is happening, he has no clue that he actually this conflict is sort of bigger than he knows, and he actually has a role bigger than he's aware of. And then that's when the gods come in, because they are pretty much the reason why Heron gets involved in this in the first place, because of the relationship between the gods and man at this point in time in the story, and then the relationship between the demons, the giants, and then of course the gods and giants feud, and how all of that tends to spill over. But essentially Heron finds out that he's a demigod, son of Zeus, and Zeus has sort of decreed him to be the one to save mankind from the demons. That's kind of how that whole thing works. So much like within the traditional Greek myth, in the Greek myth tradition, we have a seemingly everyman who finds out that he's larger than life. He's special. He's a demigod. He's decreed to go on this quest. He's given a special weapon. Zeus provides Heron with a weapon. And so he has to sort of go throughout these trials in order to, complete his quest, defeat the enemy, take back home the boon. We know how this works. Where this story differs, though, and this is what I actually appreciate about it. So, first and foremost, Heron is our main character, but I can make the argument that the main villain, Seraphim, really cool name, by the way, is just as important to the story as Heron is. The way in which it's told, it's almost as if you can make the argument. Granted, we have our protagonist and antagonist, but they're almost dual protagonists in the way in which the story is written. And so, yeah, usually it's just the one hero we're following. Seraphim's kind of a hero in his own right. He's kind of a hero in his own right in this story. And I'll get into more detail with him later on when I talk about the characters. But essentially, the way it works, these two characters, their paths cross multiple times. Their quote unquote destinies or their fates, which that's a thing in this series too. The fates are a thing in this series. More or less, they parallel each other right until we get into the climax where it finally comes to a head. But meanwhile, we have some action going on with the gods in this series. There's a lot of, I guess you could say, family melodrama with the Olympians in this series. A lot of that. A lot of politics going on in the background in the series. And actually, you know what? I'm gonna take that back. I'm gonna take it back. Not so much in the background, because there are episodes that are totally dedicated to what's going on Olympus, which is really cool. Almost to the point where our main cast of characters, like Heron and his crew, kind of take a step back for a minute. But all right. So yeah, I've pretty much said everything I could say about the main story without giving away like major spoilers, right? So how does it hold up? What do we think about it? So story-wise, like I said, I actually dug it. Even when I thought I knew how the story was going to go, there was still some surprises. And like I said, the biggest surprise is the fact that our antagonist is featured so much in the story. We get a full-blown backstory for him. We get character motivation for him. He's really well written. And in many ways, he helps this story a lot. It really does. I would argue if the story was totally dependent on Heron carrying it through, it wouldn't have worked out as well. And I'll get into more detail about that when I talk about Heron as a character. But by and like plot-wise, it's fine. It's rather typical. There are some surprises just with some creative liberties that the creators take with this material. Once again, if you know your Greek mythology and if you sort of know like the loose Greek canon, some of the events that happen in this series will take you by surprise. Especially since some of them also take place in other stories. So when you see them pop up here, you're like, whoa, where did that come from? But yeah, story-wise, I think it's fine. The writing for this series, I think, is okay. Yeah, I mean, is it the best? No. There are some missed opportunities, especially with some of the other characters. Some of the supporting characters, that what we get for them is rather interesting, but it's only a nugget, right? We don't really get to explore that as much as we could. And we also don't involve them as much as we probably could in the conflict. They sort of have their role and they just carry that role out. And that's just about it. So yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on the overarching story overall. But now I'm about to get into a little bit more detail about certain things about the series when I talk about the characters. And I'm actually going to do this a little bit different. So usually I talk about characters in terms of like, protagonists, antagonists, supporting, support, main supporting, secondary supporting, tertiary supporting, so on and so forth. This time around, I'm actually going to switch things up. I'm going to talk about the best character and work my way down to worst character. So here we go. So talking about characters, best character in this series is Hera. Hands down, best character in this series. And the role Hera plays in this series, she's sort of like so it's kind of funny because you can't really consider her the big bad. But she's one of, I guess you can consider her a secondary antagonist, right? Because if Seraphim is our main antagonist, because he's the boots on the ground, he's the one with like agency, he's the one driving the story, making things happen, right? He's the soldier, he's doing the thing, right? Hera is sort of more of like the schemer or the master planner, if you will. And of course, she does a lot of things in this series too. She definitely has agency. She pretty much attempts a coup de grace. Coup d'etat on Olympus. So yeah, she's definitely she definitely has agency in this series, and she is definitely a player. But in my opinion, she's the best character in the series, and I'll tell you guys why. First off, she is, of all the characters that appear in this series, she is the one that I think is the most faithful to her Greek origin, right? To her mythological origin. She's straight off the page. Textbook Hera. She is petty. She is spiteful. She is conniving, right? But all of those work for her character. Hera, because you got to remember who Hera is in the Greek mythology canon. She is the goddess of the hearth. She is very much the patron goddess of wives and of mothers. And when it comes to, family and the main structure of the family, she is very much militant about that. So when her husband starts stepping out like Zeus has a reputation of doing, she takes that very personal. Because it's not just a personal affront to her, it's also a personal affront to everything she represents. And she's petty about that. She is. And she doesn't just seek to get even. She seeks to get over. And the way that whole thing is portrayed in the series so the way they do it sort of makes it seem like this was the final straw. Especially when you see the degree to which Hera goes with her plan, how far she takes it. You can definitely see that she had finally had enough, and it sort of makes sense because it's not revealed until I think it's like the third to last episode that we find out like where this legend supposedly takes place in the Greek canon. Perseus has already happened. Hercules has already happened. Theseus has already happened. So Hera's been putting up with this for decades now, right? And this is the point where she finally had enough of Zeus's infidelity. But she is textbook off the page. Love Hera. The voice actress performance is really good. Let me go ahead and make sure I give that actress credit. Claudia Christian, her performance is really, really good, really, really strong. Best character in the series, in my opinion. Okay, so second best is Seraphim. And this is why I wanted to go ahead and take this opportunity to talk a little bit more about him. So the reason why I made the comment earlier where I said it's kind of funny because it seems like him and Heron are almost dual protagonists. The reason for that is because for a portion of the series, we totally follow him. And it's real funny the way they write him because I would almost argue that especially once Hera comes into the picture, Seraphim, he seems more like a tragic hero than just a straight up antagonist. It's not until to like the end of what you would regard as the second act that he goes into sort of like stereotypical villain territory. But prior to that, what we were doing with him was really interesting because we get his backstory, find out how it parallels with Heron's, and then he is given opportunities for change. He's given 3, if I really think about it, from Hera, from Zeus, and then from Heron. And at any point in time, he could change course. He can change course now because with each opportunity, he's given new information, right? The things that he didn't know, right? So once we get the initial backstory, he didn't know that. Okay, now you have an opportunity. Do you want to stay the course or do you want to do something different? Then once he's given even further details into his backstory, same choice. Stay on this new course that you have created for yourself, or figure something else out, right? And then even after he has all the information, and then even after he has actually achieved his prime goal, because the whole demonic war thing, that's sort of like his overarching goal. But we find out there's a personal goal that he has. And once he is actually given the opportunity to achieve that, and he does so, even when he comes face to face with Heron again, he could still do something different. He doesn't have to stay on the course that he's on, but he doesn't. And to some degree, that's why I say I think that's what makes him a good antagonist and an interesting one. But if you look at his story overall, he is a tragic figure. He is very much a tragic figure. But yeah, really, really interesting character. I really like what they did with him. Like I said, my only gripe is what we do with him in the third act, because he goes into stereotypical villain territory. If not for that, I mean, he's still second best behind Hera. Like I said, how about this? He's the best of the original characters. Easy. Best of the original characters in this series. All right. Now let's talk about Zeus. I got Zeus here because he's not the worst character in the series, but he's far from perfect. And I'm going to explain to you why. Of all the characters in the series, Zeus is probably the one that is the most out of character. This is not traditional Zeus. It isn't. This is an interesting Zeus. This is an interesting take on him. I still think the role he serves in the story is still very good. I still think that like the voice, because I think this one is Jason O'Mara, right? Yeah, this is Jason O'Mara that voices Zeus. I still think the performance was good. I still think that his dialogue was really well written. All of that, I think, makes sense. But this ain't Zeus, bro. This ain't Zeus. Even when I was watching the series, my biggest complaint was how helpful Zeus is to Heron on his quest. Say, bro, Zeus don't care about his kids. The demigod the demigod children that he has, he typically don't care about them. I mean, I'm not saying that he's a total, just complete POS, but the degree to which Zeus exercises his sort of paternal duty, yeah, that's an invention. That's an invention. That's not traditional Zeus. He does not go that far out of his way for his demigod children. He just doesn't. Hell, he doesn't really go that far out of the way for his Olympian children. He threw one of them off a damn mountain. So yeah, like I said, still a good performance. Cool scenes. Zeus has some of my favorite scenes in the series, but not traditional Zeus. Yeah. And that's going to bring me to, I would argue, the weakest character in the series, and that's our main character. That's Heron. Now, here's the thing about that. So I understand why what happens with Heron happens in the series, and I understand why he's depicted the way he's depicted, and I understand why he's written the way he's written, because he's supposed to be our everyman character, right? He's supposed to be an everyman. So much so to the point that Heron doesn't even discover his demigod abilities until the final episode. Because, like, yeah, he has, he has greater strength. I can't even go as far as to say it's super strength, because it's not even, I don't even think it's Herculean level strength, right? But but it's greater than normal, it's greater than average, and he seems to heal faster than normal. Like, he can recover relatively quickly. But I mean, he could have been on PEDs for all I know, man. Like that's not anything that I would consider to be necessarily like extraordinary or anything super, right? Not until the last episode does he actually summon his, godlike power. So yeah, he is very, very much just an average Joe that gets swept up in these fantastical events, right? But the problem with that is he's an average Joe, but he's not relatable. And then the fact that he is extremely whiny does not help matters. Yeah. And I get what they were going for, right? Because they were trying to make him sympathetic. I think they leaned too far in that area that it came across as pitiful. And they made him too angsty. Like the whole thing about, his anger and learning to control it. And we did that better with Seraphim than I think we did with Heron. So that's another problem too. When you have another character in the series, some of the same thematic things that we're trying to do with Heron, we actually achieve better with another character. So that makes it even worse for him. And then the fact that his sort of character arc parallels that of Seraphim, but Heron doesn't have agency. Heron is a victim of fate. He is doing what he's doing because it's fate. It's not so much, it's not like there's a prophecy or anything like that, but he is very much ruled by destiny. Whereas Seraphim is all agency. It's all him. It's him doing what he wants to do, what he's seeking to do, and whatever is required in order to achieve his goals. Once again, he is boots on the ground. Granted, he spends most of the time flying because he has that really cool Chimera mount. That thing is amazing. It's really, really freaking cool. But that's not the point. Point is, everything I think that they were trying to do with Heron, Seraphim does it better. And yeah, it kind of dampens Heron a little bit. I would even argue that some of the supporting characters, even though they don't get, actually, some of them do actually do more stuff in the series than Heron himself. Because I'm thinking about Alexia. She actually does a little bit more than Heron does, because in terms of the quote unquote good guys, she is Seraphim's actual opposite in terms of the role they play within the plot, because just like he's the one driving the narrative forward for the antagonist, she's doing the same thing for the protagonist. But the thing is, though, come that third act, she takes a backseat to Heron, and I'm just kind of like, once again, missed opportunity. That's what I said. That's what I meant when I brought that up earlier. A missed opportunity with some of the supporting characters. So yeah, but that's the thing with that. All right, so moving on. All right, so real quick, I am going to share my quick little thoughts about some of the animation, editing, all the technical stuff, Okay, so first off, as I mentioned before, this is Powerhouse Animation Studio. For those of you all who might not be familiar with Powerhouse and whatnot, they are the studio behind the Netflix Castlevania series. They've also are the studio behind OK KO, Let's Be Heroes. What's another series that they did? So they're the animation studio that's tapped for Masters of the Universe Revelation, which is the Kevin Smith He-Man it's not a reboot though, it's a sequel. Anyway, that series that's coming to Netflix, they're going to be the studio house behind that. The animation is good. It's choppy in some places. It's really, really good in others. But it wasn't too big of a problem. It wasn't too big of an issue. For the most part, it's fine. I think the character designs are pretty good. Particularly, Hera is probably my favorite design. Just because I think it fits that character so well. But I would also say Zeus is a pretty good design. I didn't know we were going to do the whole salt and pepper thing with him, so that was kind of unexpected. And I mean, God, he's built like a shit brick house, right? But then I also like Poseidon. I thought was really cool. Most of the Olympians have pretty cool designs. Hermes, I dig his design. Apollo, that one is pretty cool. Granted, how they decided to flavor Apollo was kind of like, oh, okay, that's interesting. I see what y'all did there. Okay, fine. Ares, I think looks really cool. He's really badass. And like I said, some of the creatures, like I said, Seraphine. Well, first off, Seraphine's design is at first I thought I was like, okay, that looks a little wonky. It grew on me after a while. I kind of dug it, especially when you get his backstory and you see how his transformation occurred. I was like, okay. So his design kind of grew on me after a while. Like I said, his mount is awesome. That Chimera is really, really cool. And then Heron, his griffin looks really cool. That thing looks really cool too. Most of the creatures look really cool. The giants, I think, look really cool. Yeah. I'm not going to spoil that one for you. Well, I mean, it's in the trailer, but if you guys haven't seen it yet, the giants are kind of cool. And then, of course, the settings. Some of the underworld, nice. Olympus looks really cool. Really, 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 really cool. And I also like, once again, because they did the same thing in Castlevania, the way they blend the 2D style with the CG animation, because we do have some CG in this. Well, actually, there's a lot of it in this. But when we start getting to more like mechanical, mechanized type stuff, you guys will see what I'm talking about. Because they did the same thing with Castlevania, particularly with Dracula's castle. That's when we get into the mechanics and the gears and everything like that. Yeah. That looks pretty cool. So the way they did that, I thought was really cool too. Let me see. Who is responsible for the music in this? Do they say? Let me see. Who do I have? Music is by Paul Edwards Francis. He did a good job. I like a lot of the scores. Once again, Hera and Seraphine probably have my favorite scores. Definitely. Oh, and of course the giant scores just, boding as all hell, doom and gloom, the end of the world. Yes, that it very much gets that point across. And the main theme's really cool too. Once again, done in that in that Greek, that ancient Greek tradition. So yeah, music's really cool. Yeah, so by and large, like I said, solid series. Is it the best thing Netflix has produced? No. Is it better? I mean, a lot of people are going to compare it to Castlevania because it's the same production house and whatnot. Oddly enough, I actually liked this better than Castlevania season. Yeah, I actually liked it better than season 3. I did. I actually liked this better than season 3, and I could make an argument that I actually liked it better than season 2. But at that point, that's probably just personal bias. Do I think it's better than season 2? Probably not. That's probably just personal bias at that point. It's not as good as the first. It's not as good as Castlevania season 1. No, that thing is a work of art. But I did like it better than season 3. Yeah, I did. All right, so oh man. I ran a little long on this, a little longer than I was planning, but I wanted to go. I've been waiting to talk about this series for a while, and I wanted to make sure enough people was able to watch it, so at least you guys will know what I'm talking about. I tell you what, with the last cut, because I don't see any super chats come in or anything like that, and there's no questions posted just yet. But with the last couple of minutes, I'll go into spoiler territory a little bit. Okay, so here's the thing. I was surprised by how this season, because I think it did get renewed for a second season, how this season ended. Because essentially, like I said, that whole demon versus human thing pretty much turned into, okay, it's the giants versus everything else, essentially, right? Because we had to take it to that scale, of course, right? Had to do that, had to take it to that scale. And we pretty much saw Olympus decimated by the end of this series or the end of the season. Now that came as a surprise because we removed some major players off the board. Now, granted, I don't think Zeus is actually dead. I think he is still alive. And I believe Hera is still alive too. There's no way they're going to do a second season and they're not bringing those two back. Of course they are. I'm trying to remember what other, because I think didn't Hermes get killed too? I'm trying to remember who all bit the bullet in that. So yeah, I was a little surprised by that. Like I said, the fact that we took it to that level that soon in the first season. Yeah, that kind of took me by surprise. It was a nice surprise, but it took me by surprise. And I'll be honest, because of that, I don't know what you do for a second season. Because essentially the way the story works, because usually when it comes to, Greek mythology stories, the Titans are always like the big bads. Like that's always the big, global threat, the cataclysmic threat, right? That's the big thing. And in this series, the giants are pretty much the stand-ins for the Titans, which, for the record, I like the way in which how they introduced and incorporated the giants into this, which is it's kind of faithful because in this series, the giants are the spawns of a Titan, because it was like, from a fallen Titan and his blood produced the giants, which that is fake. That is actually faithful to Greek mythology. It's just not done in the same way. And then it's like after the Titans, the giants are pretty much this big threat, and how they have the war with the Olympians, because that happens in Greek mythology too. There are actually two. There's one big war with the Titans, and then there's one big war with the giants. And apparently these are two separate things, but usually those two myths are conflated with each other. The way in which they stand apart, though, those are two big things, because Cronus is the one responsible for the creation of the giants, and we know he is pretty much the big foil in the war against the Titans. So that's the big thing that kind of distinguishes those two events. Giants took place after the Titans. And so the way they worked that in was pretty cool. And then, of course, how the demons were spawned from the giants and how that whole thing worked, that was pretty cool too. But like I said, I thought that since we opened the show with the giants, that should have, the actual seeing them, I think should have been saved for later. Sort of how what they did with Castlevania, where Dracula is the big threat. He's the big overarching looming threat, but we don't go toe to toe with him in that first season. You know, he is our big bad, but you know, we deal with lesser antagonists, because I would have been perfectly fine if Seraphim was just the big bad in the season. I'd have been fine with that. And the same thing goes with Hera. We didn't have to wipe her off the board so soon. We could have kept her around, and you know, done a lot more of the political stuff on Olympus in another season. But then again, if that's the case, you pretty much have to rewrite half of the first season. And as I said, they did not establish Heron as a strong enough protagonist to pull that off. So, but yeah, that's pretty much that. All right, guys. It is time for me to get out of here. I want to go ahead, thank everybody who's watching live. I want to thank everybody who tuned in after the fact. As always, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Thumb this video up if you like it. Share it with anyone you think might get a kick out of it and whatnot. Share it on social media. You know, also follow me on social media. Facebook.com/OAW Entertainment, Twitter.com/OAW ENTMT, Twitch.tv/OAW Entertainment, of course, right here, YouTube.com/OAW Entertainment. And last but certainly not least, quick announcement. So because it is a new month and I am pretty much getting back into the swing of things with uploading and whatnot, I will finally be caught up with the outstanding requests that I have. So this month, that's happening this month. So I'm planning ahead, getting ready for next month and whatnot, for next month's video slate. If you guys have a request for a anime that you would like, since this is a anime review, if you guys have a request for an anime that you would like to see me review right here on OAW Entertainment, become a patron at patreon.com/OAW. Select that Crunchyroller tier. I got to go back and I got to kind of edit some things with the tiers, but for the most part, requests are open. Granted, they've been open the whole time I was, you know, off on my little hiatus and whatnot. They were open that whole time too, but, you know, I was kind of slowing down with requests just because I had so many backed up. But once again, requests are open right now because I'm planning for next month, scheduling them in advance. So if you want to make sure that your request gets in time for next month, go ahead, become a patron, patreon.com/OAW Entertainment. Like I said, select the Crunchyroller tier. With the Crunchyroller tier, not only do you get your request for a first impression style review of the first 2 episodes of an anime of your choice, but or a manga. I also do manga under that same tier too. Yeah, check out my A Comic to Kill review. You guys see how I do the manga. But yeah, I also do manga under that tier as well. But in addition to your request, you also get access to our Patreon exclusive content. You get access to the OAW Vault, which is the collection of the first 2 seasons of Otaku Assemble Weekly, which is the original web series that kickstarted the channel. And that is the original anime, manga, rant, movie review. We got a bunch of videos. Right? I think it's like over 65 of those. And many of them are like 2 and 3 parters, right? So you get access to all of that. And last but certainly not least, you also get an invite to join in on the live monthly Q&A held every month right here on the OAW Entertainment YouTube channel, Facebook page, as well as the Twitch channel. Yeah, on all 3. So once again, patreon.com/OAW, hit that Crunchyroller tier. All right, guys. So I'm doing another stream tomorrow night. I am not sure what that is going to be. I have another review that I'm kind of itching to do, but the timing, and I'm like, should I do it now or should I wait? I'm debating doing The Mandalorian season 2. Because I'm really loving that show right now. I really want to talk about it. I think you guys will get a kick out of it, but it does conclude in 3 weeks. I'm like, I could just wait 3 weeks and review the entire season. Or I can just do 2 Mandalorian videos. We don't know. I don't know. I'm still debating that. And I also have a top 5 that I've been meaning to do for some time now that I got to get out. All right. So time for me to get out of here, guys. Once again, I want to thank you all for joining me. This has been Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief. I am signing off. And until next time, peace.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?